مرحبا. 1,700,000 إنسان تركوا منازلهم خلال 60 يوم من أيام الحرب على قطاع غزة. تعالوا نسأل النساء شو أخذوا؟ هل لحقوا ياخذوا شيء؟ أو ممكن نسألهم كمان شو نفسهم ياخذوا لو ما كانوا أخذوا شيء وقت ما طلعوا؟
أخذت أواعية وغراضي وجزمة، بس نسيتهم بالبيت وضلتنا بأواعية، وجبت بس لعبتين معي.
أشوف ألعاب. هدول اللي جبتيهم معك؟ واللبس اللي انت لابساه؟
من زمان علي.
3 فرشات وبطانيتين، بغطي فيهم 8، خبط في بعض ومش عارفين يتحركوا، بس ماشيين حالنا. لكن اليهود مش سايبيننا في حالنا. اطلعوا على الجنوب. جينا على الجنوب على المدارس ضغط وزحمه ودنيا. جينا على المستشفى هنا ورا عملنا خيمه زي ما انت شايفه، خيمه بنايلون، يعني اذا ضرب الطاقه اتفتفتنا كلنا تحت الطاقه. هيها على السور معموله، هايهم قاعدين بيعملوا اصوات، بدمروا فينا وبتعبوا فينا.
اثناء ما اخذت صوره ابني الله يرحمه صورته، أخذت شهادة الوفاة وراقي تثبت إن أنا فلسطينية. أخذت علاجي، أخذت فقط بس طلعت أنا وولادي الحمد لله بالأواعينا اللي علينا.
أخذنا معنا شوية ملابس بس، هاي اللي قدرنا ناخده ونحقل عليه. لا طلعنا لا لقينا، لا عرفنا نحمل إحرام ولا فرشة ولا إشي، يعني طالعين إحنا ما معانا إشي.
أنا ما أخذتش، أنا خطفوني أنا وولادي في الدار. بنتي 40 يوم عمرها واستشهد، وعمي وولادي وسلفي، وبنتي 40 يوم يعني استشهدت. إيش ضل؟ إيش بدهم؟ إيش ضل؟ أطفال مرميين في الشوارع بنستنى رحمة رب العالمين. فيش حد متحرك ولا حد مدور على حدا. انتكبنا نكبة جديدة، خراب الديار. ايش بدهم اكتر من هيك؟
Hey everyone, this is Bisan from Gaza. We're still alive and continuing with you the coverage for Al Arabi TV for days under bombing. Today is the day 61 of the war in Gaza, the continuous bombing, killing and displacement. But today was really tough on people on Jabalia refugee camp in the north of Gaza Strip, because simply the tanks and the Israeli soldiers are in the north of the camp and in the south in the Fallujah area. Another thing is that the people in the camp are making massive graves, because simply there is no way to get outside the camp to bury the dead bodies. So they are bombed, they are killed, and they are buried inside the camp. And also, as you know, the hospitals in the north of Gaza Strip are out of service. So also there's no treatment after bombing and all these events happening in the north. Another thing is that Block 2 in the Jabalia refugee camp was bombed yesterday, and that caused around or between 100 to 150 people to be killed. So Jabalia is really suffering. People there are suffering. The bombing is continuous in the middle area of Gaza Strip, in Deir al-Balah, and Khan Yunis, Rafah, and in other places in the north of Gaza Strip. We're talking about Gaza City also. Tonight, 5 honorable schools were bombed. Palestine, Al-Falah, and Salah ad-Din schools in the north of Gaza City, Ma'an school and other school in Bani Sayla in Khan Yunis. These schools contained hundreds of thousands of people. These schools were, or the honorable schools contained almost 1,200,000 people, and they are all in danger, as these schools, 5 schools, were not the only schools to be bombed. Several schools were bombed several times during this aggression in Gaza, like Al-Fakhura school, for example. So the schools are not safe, although the UNRWA is saying that they put the flag, the UN flag, over the schools and the shelters, but despite this, they are bombed. Another thing is that the schools are not safe the hospitals are not safe, and the streets are not enough. People are going to Rafah to find any place to shelter there because they were warned to go outside or to evacuate Khan Yunis, but they don't find any place in Rafah. So they try to go to the middle area. The road is not safe always. There is no safe places in Khan Yunis either. It's a combat zone, as the leaflets and as the Israeli army is telling people. So Rafah basically is not enough. There's no food, there's no water, there's no hygiene, there's no places in Rafah. And talking about the food, the WFP was talking about entering the starvation or the hunger area or phase, because there is no food in Gaza or even clean water for days now. So 2.2 million people are hungry, are thirsty, and they don't have any life supplies and life needs in Gaza this time, or these times. So this is about Gaza for now. Of course, the situation is harder than how I'm talking about it. People are living worse situations inside the schools, inside the hospitals. Children are striving. Children are asking for food, are asking anyone in the street for food, are trying to do anything. People have money, but there is no products. Now the money is without any value.
It's December the 6th, 2023, live from Gaza. 4 reasons, 4 facts why we should remain positive despite all what is happening around us. The Israelis are now 3 kilometers north, 3 kilometers east of Nasser Hospital. They have been doing a tactic that is relying on speed and accelerating their advance into certain areas in order to achieve some kind of quick victory. Under very heavy airstrikes, they basically take out several neighborhoods that are in their way to ensure that their vehicles enter and then stay put in some areas, are able to make quick wins and send back to their people, send back to the US government and to the world that, look, we have made it. We have entered into Khan Yunis. However, they do not know what is waiting for them. It's a trap. And soon you will hear about news about the reality of actually what is happening there on the ground. Reason number one why you should remain positive. Over 500,000 Israelis have left Israel over the last 60 days. All Israelis have 2 passports. Palestine is not their homeland. They have come here from the outside. Number 2, the internal conflicts between the Israelis themselves is unimaginable. The people on the ground, the sane people, do not want this war to continue. They understand that it is impossible to dismantle Hamas, in addition to free all the hostages. In addition to that, elections are coming up, and lots of people are against Netanyahu openly, especially the politicians, in order to gain momentum in these elections. Number 3, the US has said that, look, you have until the end of this month maximum to finish whatever military work you have to do. Hence, their patience is running out. And Biden administration knows that nothing is being achieved, and they're just succumbing into whatever the Israeli regime is trying to push through. And finally, we have a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to those who remain steadfast, who remain patient, to those who remain on his straight path. And alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, millions of Palestinians here are not going anywhere. We will continue to cling to our religion, to our land, and continue to fight for freedom on behalf of the whole world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
فأخذهم الطوفان وهم ظالمون.
ايش بيعنوا؟
هم الظالمون مش احنا الظالمون اللي بيدوسوا على المدنيين وعلى المواطنين الابرياء والاطفال العزل. احنا كمواطنين رحلنا من شمال قطاع غزه، ايش ذنبنا احنا؟ لا معنا اسلحه ولا معنا ارهاب ولا بنعمل اي شيء، احنا مواطنين عزل لجأنا من ملجأ لملجأ لملجأ، واليوم بترمي لنا هذه. ايش الغايه من هذه؟ ايش الغايه من هذا الكلام؟ هم اللي ظالمون ولا انتم اللي ظالمون؟ انتم اللي بتعملوه في الشعب وفي المدنيين. هذا الظلم تبعكم. احنا مش ارهابيين، احنا ناس عزل، احنا ما إلنا دعوه.
ارجع يلا قصف علينا بشكل مباشر. انزل رمضان ارجع اطلع. يا الله روح ارجع. استنى يا الله ارجع السيف. يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله. حزمات نارية الآن في منطقة مظهر أثناء تواجد. يا الله حزمات نارية الآن في منطقة مظهر.
هيو رمضان طلع من الشبكة يا زلمة. هيو
ارجع يا عم. انزل روح.
روح يا زلمة.
وقف. هي رمضان ثاني. يلا
رمضان اجري يا رمضان.
اطلع محمد اطلع
روح
اركب. خليه خيطة.
رمضان
ركب روح. تعال رمضان تعال. اركب. سكر الباب يا عمي. سكر الباب.
معلق الباب.
خلي سيبك منه. يا الله يا الله. حمات نارية. وين؟ وقف. اصبر محمد اصبر. ايش في شك شيء؟
احنا مش ملاقيين. مش ملاقيين. ايش اللي نساعد؟ انا ميت من الجوع قاعد تسوينا ما شايفه. انا ميت من الجوع. بدنا ناكل بدنا نشرب. خلونا يا عالم. بدنا ناكل احنا.
Israel regularly does very evil, messed up things. But every once in a while, they really outdo themselves. Today was one of those times. What you're looking at here is one of hundreds or thousands of leaflets that were dropped by Israeli army warplanes on the southern Gaza Strip area of Khan Yunis. If you don't read Arabic, you might be thinking, oh, this is another leaflet warning Palestinians to evacuate from this area so that they can go to safe zones. That is not what this is. This leaflet is a verse from the Holy Quran, and it roughly translates to, the flood overtook them while they were wrongdoers. It's specifically referring to this verse that's in a surah or a chapter of the Quran where God is talking about the prophet Nuh or prophet Noah and how after hundreds of years of preaching to his people, they did not heed his calls, and so they were overtaken by the great flood because they persisted in sin. Essentially, it's a flood warning. Not even a warning, or so a pointed declaration, because it coincides with what is happening right now on the ground in Gaza, which is the Israeli military is pumping seawater into Gaza's network of tunnels as an attempt to destroy the tunnel network and flush Hamas out of the tunnels. This operation to flood all the tunnels, the network of tunnels underneath Gaza, has severe implications. This historian wrote here on Twitter saying that Israeli forces are flooding Gaza with seawater under the pretext of destroying the tunnels. This will result in the long-term destruction of groundwater and aquifers, rendering agriculture and drinking water impossible, eliminating life for decades. This is a crime against humanity. So not only is Israel once again causing irreparable damage to the Gaza Strip that will have repercussions for decades and decades to come, but it is also enacting a very specific type of psychological torture on the population of the people in Gaza. Because this flyer right here is not a warning. It is not meant to evacuate people or warn them to move to safety. It serves one purpose and one purpose only. It is meant to psychologically torture the people of Gaza. It's making a mockery, first and foremost, of their religion, making a mockery of their God by invoking God's word and attributing that same power, the power of bringing on a big flood, that only God has that power. The Israeli military is saying, no, we have that power. We're doing that to you, and you are helpless, and your God cannot help you. And it's also making a mockery of the Palestinian resistance and any attempt to resist Israeli oppression, because specifically the word tufan, the word flood, that was what Hamas used in the name of their operation, Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. And so the psychology behind this letter or this leaflet, the religious connotations, the political ones, putting Israel's own military logo and the Star of David, their own religious symbols, on these holy verses, and then using them as sort of threats or a way to mock the people of Gaza and say, you know, we're about to flood you, or we are flooding you, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just really, really cruel.
There have been several instances that have occurred today, but something that I want to talk about is, and I've talked about it in my other account, but it's increased settler violence. So in 2021, there was at least one reported incident a day of settler violence in occupied East Jerusalem and in the occupied West Bank. In 2022, it was 2. In 2023, before the 7th of October, it was at least 3 reported incidents. Currently, there are at least 7 reported incidents of settler violence in Palestine, perpetrated by Israeli settlers. No, illegal Israeli settlers. Israel has never complied with any international resolutions regarding settler violence or taken any action towards them, but instead they have just yesterday approved for new settlements in occupied East Jerusalem, something that hadn't been done in years. Israel is trying to legitimize settler violence and more settler colonialism.
It's day 61 of this genocide. It's the 6th of December, and this is a 24-hour update of what's happening in Palestine. Since the 7th of October, over 16,248 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza alone. That does not take into account those that have been killed in the West Bank or in occupied East Jerusalem since this escalation has started. Since my last update, Israel has attacked the Nusrat refugee camp in central Gaza again, killing 6 people and injuring dozens more, while destroying the nearby buildings. The Israeli forces also raided the Balata refugee camp in the city of Nablus in occupied West Bank, where 1 man is in a critical condition after being shot in the head and 3 others are injured after being shot in various parts of their body. The UNRWA have said that Gaza Strip is one of the most dangerous places in the world at the moment. And fighting is expected to intensify even more in Khan Yunis in the next 2 days. The Jerusalem Post has even said that the Israeli forces will need to move carefully because it's believed that the captives could be held in Khan Yunis. Just when you think that humanity has hit rock bottom, that this genocide can't get any worse, it seems like the ground opens up and there's new depths of hell that these Palestinians are having to endure, and we're just having to watch on the outside, helpless. I pray that this genocide ends soon. I pray that Palestine is liberated once and for all, and that we do not have to keep on showing that these lives matter.
As a woman, I have to speak of the struggles of women of Gaza. The women of Gaza are almost 50% of the population. The women of Gaza have been struggling with their periods since the beginning of the genocide in Gaza. In the beginning of the genocide, they were taking contraception pills to delay their periods. Now they are out of those pills, and also they are out of pads. The women of Gaza don't have pads or any feminine products for their periods. That comes every month, and as women we know how it is getting your period and the pain that comes with it and the mess that comes with it. So imagine the women of Gaza not having the basic feminine products for those times. The women of Gaza need feminine products. This is a feminist issue. Where is the women rights organizations? Where is human rights? I know human rights is not doing anything. The women of Gaza are struggling. Again, they need painkillers, they need feminine products like pads and so on, and they need contraception pills if they want to delay their periods. This is a very important topic to address. No one talks about it a lot. While the women of Gaza are 50% of the population. So just imagine what they are going through.
I thought about this message, and please don't get angry, but I think he's right. We need the Zionists to wipe the floor with your motherfucking fake propaganda. So listen up, punk. Here are 3 signs Israel is going down. The UN, for the first time ever, has called for Resolution 99, which means that you are a threat to worldwide peace and security. Harvard, MIT, and UPenn, they refuse to fall for your gaslighting techniques. In front of Congress today, they said that threats to Jewish students will only be taken seriously if there is a potential action behind. And let me clarify this for you. We don't need any of that shit that you think you invented. But even Starbucks that lost $12 billion because they are supporting you. The only reason you have money to start with is because you've created a capitalist world economy on the back of exploiting places like the DRC or dispossessing people's lands so that you can maintain regimes of accumulation and colonialism. That ship is sailing. The BRICS countries are going to create their own currency. Bitcoin is rising. All those tech startups and apps that you've ever created, the next 10 years, Nigerians will produce more. The biggest nuclear power in the world is Russia. So yeah, the world has changed and you're still stuck in the 40s. So see you never.
See, this is the reason why CNN will never be an official news organization. They're just a propaganda for the Israeli government. Because what do you mean military fatigue? What do you mean? Who is dressed in military fatigue? They're literally trying to absolve them of all the crimes they're doing. It's laughable at this point. And in the article, they go on to talk about how the Israeli Defense Forces are investigating soldiers that did this. So if you know it's the Israeli Defense Forces, why not say Israeli soldiers shot the man? A mentally disabled Palestinian man at that fact, and in the West Bank where there's no Hamas. And people bullied them so much that they changed the title. Video shows mentally disabled Palestinian man shot in the West Bank. Shot by who? And then they finally changed it to the correct one. Video shows Israeli soldier. Why do we have to beg you to do your job? Why do we have to beg you to report the accurate news? If you're going to consider yourself a news organization, maybe report on the actual news. Maybe say things as they are. Like, y'all are despicable at this point. And, you know, you're not a news organization, but you know what? Go kick rocks. No one ever trusted you. No one's going to trust you.
You've heard of the rape of Israeli women? Horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation? Where the hell are you? I expect all civilized leaders, governments, nations to speak up against this atrocity.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about the mistreatment of Israeli women, Israeli soldier women. 3 soldiers were charged with raping and sodomizing female combatants. 90% of rape cases in Israel are closed without conviction. A female soldier killed herself after reporting that she was raped, and the Israeli government didn't do anything about it. Female IDF soldiers were pimped out to terrorize inmates. IDF soldier charged with sexual assault of 3 female subordinates. And this is just what they're doing to their own women in their own army. And this is what they're doing to men, women, and children that are Palestinian. So yes, let's talk about the horrendous acts that the Israeli terrorist organization is committing against women, children, and men in some cases.
To get a German citizenship, you gotta agree that Israel has a right to exist. They actually did it. They actually did it. In one of the states in Germany, you actually now have to pledge your allegiance to Israel to become a citizen of Germany. Didn't y'all get into trouble the first time you pledge allegiance to somebody? Because this is giving very much the same thing. You're pledging allegiance to a country that's committing genocide. How many genocides are you going to be a part of?
About 4 hours ago, an Israeli raid wounded 4 Palestinian men and critically injured 1. Israeli forces raided the Balata refugee camp in the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Ahmed Jibril, the director of the Red Crescent Ambulance and Emergency Center from Nablus, said that one of the men was in serious condition after being shot in the head. The other 3 men that were shot in different parts of their bodies are fortunately stable. Sources say that Israeli forces arrested 1 man before withdrawing from the Balata camp. And just moments ago, it was confirmed that the man that was shot in the head, Abdul Nasser Ariyahi, succumbed to his wounds at the Rafidiyah hospital and was pronounced dead. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, the total number of Palestinians killed in the occupied West Bank since October 7th is now 264. 204 innocent civilians killed where there was no Hamas, some of them being children, some of them being teenagers. It's cruel and it's inhumane, and we all know that. Don't become desensitized to it. The Palestinians need us to care. It's the only way. This is a fight for liberation. This is a fight for humanity. We need to keep screaming. We need to keep pushing for them.
The Israeli occupation continues terrorizing Palestinians in the West Bank. They're continuing their raids in Jenin, and they're terrorizing Palestinians in Hebron. These are some of the footage. We are witnessing the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Gaza. The Palestinians in the West Bank are also witnessing the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Gaza. If we allow the Israeli occupation to get away with what they're doing in Gaza, who's going to stop them from doing the same thing to Palestinians in the West Bank? They have ramped up the raids, they have ramped up the arrests, they have been terrorizing them for no reason. No reason other than the fact that they're Palestinians. The Israeli police assaulted anti-Zionist Jewish clergymen. This is giving anti-Semitic. Where's the public outrage?
Something that's always present when you are witnessing the footage coming out of Palestine is the dust. Dust from bombed, disintegrated homes, just entirely covering faces, mixed with blood and tears. Children sitting, squatting shoulder to shoulder with other children on piles of dust. Dust and rubble and bodies, martyred and alive, everything mixing so we almost can't tell one from another. Adults kneeling next to babies and children, screaming their name, holding them, kissing them, grabbing them, and surrounded on in between with dust. There are elders still weeping from the first Nakba, in disbelief at the repeated loss of land and life. Each of them asking rightly so why the world hasn't stopped the genocide yet. Asking where are they to go when there's nowhere else to flee. Mourning while being bombed constantly, fleeing, running, never able to stop or pause. Still covered in dust because there's not even a moment to brush it away. 100% adrenaline, 24/7 constant drones, constant crumbling, constant searching, constant fleeing, constant death, constant dust. And when the dust does finally settle, the death and damage will be even more devastating than what we're witnessing now. The generational trauma, the moment when everything can actually be weighed and taken in, the grief that will follow the grief now, the body, mind, and heart that will have eternal, forever marks and memories. May that dust become the conscience of the people around the world witnessing all of this. Everywhere, always, forever, in our lungs, in our hearts, in all of our organs so that it never leaves us, never to be unseen, and never forgotten.
When I tell people I'm Palestinian, a lot of the time they assume that I am Muslim, and I'm not. I love my Muslim brothers and sisters, but I am not. I am a Palestinian Christian. My grandpa's family is Catholic, and my grandma's family is Orthodox. And being a Palestinian Christian, I always think it's very bizarre to frame what's going on in Palestine as a religious war between Jews and Muslims. It's not what's going on, and there are a lot of motivations behind framing it as such, and that's a video for another time. But what I want to talk about from my perspective as a Palestinian Christian, in particular as we approach Christmas, is Christian Zionists and why I really struggle with them. Having done my homework and having read your book, I don't know how you look at Palestinian children in Gaza right now and don't see the face of Jesus. And I don't just mean to make that comparison because Jesus was born in Bethlehem, which is a city that still exists in the occupied West Bank, 15 miles from where my grandpa was born. I make that comparison because of the circumstances of the story of the Nativity and how it reflects so much of what is going on right now. Jesus was born in unsanitary, overcrowded conditions in a stable, or maybe in a UN school, or maybe in Al Shifa hospital. He was born under a regime that viewed the fact and circumstances of his birth as a threat to its power. And as a result, they attempted to murder him and babies like him. He and his young family had to flee south through Palestine into Egypt to live as refugees, possibly crossing at Rafah, where we're seeing Palestinians cross right now. When I say Jesus is Palestinian, it's not because he is born in a city that is now modern Palestine. It is because I don't know how you look at the children in Gaza, young Palestinian kids' faces who are having their world shattered and don't see the face of your savior. And I know you can empathize with a white Jesus that you think is named Jesus, but he's not. He's brown, and his name is Isa, and he lives in Palestine. Your Messiah would hate Zionism, and there is so much biblical evidence of that. Christmas is canceled in the Holy Land this year because if Jesus was born today, he would be born under rubble. I'm not religious anymore. I don't believe at the end of my life I will stand on a day of judgment in front of Jesus and answer for my sins. But you believe that, and I'm curious how you will answer for calling for a genocide of Palestinian children that 2,000 years ago would have annihilated your savior.
There is a place in Gaza called the Muassi. The Muassi is the place where they all can have shelters. Together with international organizations, we created shelters for the Palestinian people. So you cannot say Israel is not, facilitating that. Together with humanitarian...
So according to Hotobelli, in Al-Muassi, Gazans will be safe from bombs. They'll have access to shelters and humanitarian aid. Very, very humanitarian. Unfortunately for Hotobelli, Sky obtained footage of Muassi.
This is where she's talking about, a desolate wasteland of sand dunes next to the Mediterranean Sea. There is no aid in Al-Muassi. There are no aid agency tents. There are no food kitchens. There is no help here.
Ash, 2 million people live in Gaza. According to Sipi Hotobelli, they should all go hang out on what looks like a kind of abandoned junkyard, essentially.
It's critical, I think, for us to realize that when you're dealing with, an Israeli diplomat like Zipi Hotobelli, you're not dealing with a kind of international statesman who is, very sober and very measured in the things that they say, and they're worried about preserving a sort of diplomatic balance. What you're dealing with is a propagandist who has absolutely no regard for the truth if that truth doesn't serve their state's interests.
You do realize that most of the money that I do take from you goes towards like defense funds, right? The military, the group that makes sure that you don't die. You know what? I'm moving up here. Are you fucking? What Department of Defense are you fucking talking about? You mean the one that failed 5 audits in a year? The one that lost 60% of the $3 trillion that they were given? They lost $3 trillion in assets. What the fuck are you talking about? They're just ordering and ordering and ordering and ordering. They're triple, quadruple ordering the same shit over and over and over and over and over. We don't even pay our military what they should be making in the fucking first place. Have you seen veterans when they get out of the military, you pretentious bitch? Now I will go back to the back seat because I don't like being this close to you.
You want a lottery ticket?
Shut the fuck up!
All the journalists that they're killing, targeting, who else can get away with this? Who else can do this with impunity? They're killing the truth. And that even came out, like, I think in a Politico article, it said Biden and his cohorts were scared that journalists were going to get in and show the complete devastation and ruin in Gaza during the truce, and that might shape American minds, Brian. That's what they're scared of. They're scared of Americans turning against this colonial genocidal project because they don't want us to see the truth. That's why they're systematically taking out the journalists. They want everyone to die. They don't want any semblance of civic society left. That's why they're taking out all the best and brightest in Gaza, all the staff of the hospitals. I just saw a video today of NICU babies that were left to die from Israeli soldiers that were invading the hospital. Who does that? Who, with any shred of humanity, can see babies laying helpless and leave them to die? That is what's going on. And they don't want us to see this. And that's why the disgusting appendages of US empire, these so-called journalists that are essentially just stenographers for the Israeli media, can just go up there and just repeat lies. How dare they call themselves journalists? How dare they? How could you be a journalist and not, with every fiber of your being, speak out against this country, this government that is taking out your colleagues? How could they do that?
Vast majority of our ancestors did not have degrees. They did not have literacy levels the way we do today, meaning revolutions, class consciousness, all of these things happen word of mouth. They didn't need Angela Davis, academic Frantz Fanon. They were able to recognize injustice, colonization on their own and organize. And y'all today in grad school studying decolonization and using all the right words, and you're like, this is too complicated. There's both sides to the story. That's embarrassing. It is so freaking embarrassing. Like, entire degrees wasted on you. Like, if you have a master's in international policy and you can't analyze current events, bro, literally, what was the point? That is so embarrassing. I just don't know. Like, you are the expert. Do you realize that? You are the expert. You've been given this degree, this license, whatever. And you're like, oh, I'm not informed enough on this. Then who is? By the way, I'm not devaluing education. I'm just pissed that people in my grad school that I know other people can probably relate to. It's just so freaking annoying.
Let's talk about the paradox of the Muslim woman identity and how that differs in conflict than white women. The paradox of the Muslim woman is that she can be either one of these things or both at once in the same conflict. So for example, a Muslim woman could be seen as innocent or helpless, but also terrorizing. Incapable, but also manipulative or plotting. Uneducated, or a mastermind and sneaky. Shy and reserved, or confrontational. Conservative, yet extreme. Hysterical, or tough and sacrificial. Oppressed, but also a legitimate threat. And these have leanings in how people deal with Swana or Muslim women in conflicts, especially with white women. For example, when a white woman cries, she is seen as innocent and helpless. But when a Muslim or Swana woman cries, that's seen as manipulative, or even the harm being justified, like she should be crying. White women also enjoy the pleasure of having onlookers attack her offender and defend her. Whereas for Muslim women, they are often attacked again, accused, or interrogated, not presumed to be the victim. White women enjoy the privilege of being presumed innocent, whereby Muslim women are almost always met with suspicion. For white women, accountability feels like an attack or a confrontation. But for Muslim women, accountability is by any means necessary, and there's no limits by which accountability is found. White women also enjoy the right to comfort, whereas Muslim women and Swana women are subjected to subjugation and dehumanization, treatment like we're dumb animals. And white women are allowed to use excuses, and those are accepted. Whereas Muslim women are almost always scapegoated. So yes, it's true that white women are in fact subjected to misogyny.
But Muslim women and Swana women are dehumanized to the extent that they are not even given the privilege of access to womanhood.
And in 2018, the Great March of Return was a mass mobilization of tens, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza, the elderly, the young, in a celebratory mood, with celebrations of culture, with people putting on their traditional clothing, going to the border in a festival atmosphere to say we're here, we're human, we demand an end to this siege. And Israel sent military snipers to murder them in cold blood, to pick them off, to kneecap them. They killed 200 unarmed civilians over the course of the Great March of Return marches. They kneecapped and maimed more than 4,000 people with malice aforethought. Was there an outcry? Did the world come to the aid of the Palestinians? Not a bit of it. And so what is left for them except to fight back, except to resist with everything they have? And that's what brought us to what happened on Saturday. That is why we are today. It was solely Israel's choice. What Nelson Mandela wrote in his great book, The Long March to Freedom, it is always the oppressor, not the oppressed, who determines the form of the struggle. And if the oppressor uses violence, the oppressed must respond with violence. This is the same reality as the anti-colonial struggle in South Africa, all across Africa, in Vietnam, everywhere else in the world. The Palestinians are not in a different situation. And that's how we came to Saturday, the 7th of October, 2023.
I've been sick, and because I hate being sick by myself and because I didn't have anything contagious, I went back to my childhood home and laid in my childhood room where my mom bought me several types of soup, just depending on what I could keep down. And while I was sick as a dog in my childhood bed, I thought of Bisan, who is sick in a mattress across the world, begging for people to care as she lays dying from an infection. And I thought, for the first time, not as rest as resistance, but rest as such a privilege. A few days ago, I went to the doctor for the same stomach ache, and I had a great time. I love my doctor. We sat, we chatted, she gave me some tips on how to feel better and some medicine, and I went home thinking, not only is it a privilege to have access to adequate health care, which I've always known, but what a privilege it is to have access to health care at all over something so trivial, like a stomach ache. I thought about what a privilege it is that I could get in my silly little car and drive across town to ask my doctor some silly little questions when people lay on the other side of the world dying of sickness and disease and are undergoing surgery on hospital floors without anesthesia, and women are giving birth just anywhere that they can without access to the proper medical care, praying that the building doesn't get bombed down. It's weird. This entire time, I thought that I cared enough about other people. I thought that I knew enough. I thought that I was angry enough. But being sick like that, I don't think any of us are angry enough. I have nothing smart to say. I have nothing to say at all besides, sorry I've been gone, and I'm back, kind of, and I feel better, but I'll likely go away again because I'm not 100%. But wow, what a privilege it is to be sick and know that you can get better. And what an infuriating feeling we should all have to know that, and know that it shouldn't be a privilege at all.
So anytime I make a video about history, there's people in my comments being like, you're not telling the whole story. And obviously I'm not telling the whole story because it's a 2-minute video and there's only so much you can say. But you do realize that if I did tell the whole story, that's only going to make you look worse, not better, right? So case in point, I talked about the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, and they're like, you didn't talk about the assassination attempt that happened before it. So there was a failed assassination attempt, not of the Israeli prime minister, but of the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom. So 11 days before the war, on May 25th, Ariel Sharon, Israel's defense minister, went to the United States, and he met with the U.S. Secretary of State at the time, Alexander Haig, and he showed him his plans to invade Lebanon in order to eliminate the PLO. And Haig's response to Ariel Sharon was that their quote must be a recognizable provocation, one that would be understood internationally. And just a few days after that, on June 3rd, there was a failed assassination attempt against the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom. And who did this failed assassination attempt? It was the Abu Nidal group. The Abu Nidal group at this point were well known to be mercenaries, often doing things that they were paid to do by foreign intelligence, sometimes the Iraqi foreign intelligence, sometimes Libyan foreign intelligence, and it was highly suspected that they sometimes did things when they were paid by Israeli intelligence. You know, put two and two together, he has this meeting with Haig, then a couple of days later there's this failed assassination attempt, and then a couple of days later they invade Lebanon. Now, some people did raise it with the Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin at the time to tell him, hey, the group that did the assassination attempt, Abu Nidal, they hate the PLO and the PLO hates them. And he was basically like, whatever, we don't care, they're all the same. And he went ahead with the invasion.
So Israel has decided to start flooding the tunnels within Gaza. They have spent a few weeks setting up 5 pumps to start pumping in seawater into the tunnels. Now the pumps are fairly large, but here's the thing. Now we know that tunnels are around 1.5 meters in width and about 2.5 meters high, and we know there's about 500 kilometers worth of tunnel, and all of that means that they would need 1.8 million cubic meters worth of water off the top of my head. 1.875 million cubic meters worth of water, I just checked. That's in the range of 750 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And that would take weeks to fill up. And somehow within the first 24 hours, Israel already has footage of Hamas being drowned. So behind me is the footage, and if you just see it, there's someone running towards a guy in the tunnel, and then out of nowhere, this starts to happen. Now, I know you can't see it clearly, but essentially what's happened is that the tunnel has flooded from the top. And you may be like, oh damn, like Israel, you're really affected, that is really cool. But then again, this will take weeks upon weeks, and there is no way to guarantee that Israel has somehow managed to flood a tunnel, then recovered the footage from the tunnel that will happen to be switched on within the tunnel of this chickpea fighter. Now, if the chickpeas are within the tunnels, I don't think it would be implausible to think that they would end up, you know, blocking up certain parts of the tunnels. And with supposedly hundreds of entrances and exits, what stops them from evacuating? But regardless of all of the options that the chickpea fighters do have, Israel could possibly be committing a war crime with the simple fact that flooding the tunnels creates structural instability, it creates a severe displacement of soil, and it could lead to the formation of sinkholes. Now, Israel has a simple excuse: they built tunnels underneath civilian infrastructure. But the question of proportionality is ever so present. Because doing this to the ground soil quite literally means that you will not be able to rebuild on that land properly for many, many years. But perhaps a wasteland out of Gaza is what Israel needs in order to completely annex it, in the name of using it for other purposes such as oil and gas extraction. Free Palestine.
Let's play a game. Put a finger down.
Put a finger down if you've killed more than 11,000 innocent civilians. Put a finger down if you told innocent civilians to evacuate to the south of Gaza's region and then bomb the hell out of it. Put a finger down if you've killed more than 70 journalists because their only crime was documenting the atrocities that you committed. Put a finger down if you've been carpet bombing the most densely populated area in the world for 58 days straight. Put a finger down if you detain underage children and try them in a military court. Put a finger down if you censor pro-Palestinians and supporters of Palestine online because you're too scared of losing the media war. Put a finger down if you rape women and abduct men. Put a finger down if you pay people to show up to your protests and voice fake support for you online. Put a finger down if anti-Semitism is your only defense every time you feel called out. And put a finger down if you are so deluded as to participate in TikTok trends like putting a finger down when you're committing a literal genocide.
This is wow.
If your Texas house was destroyed by Hurricane Harvey, you can get emergency funds unless you support the boycott of Israel. I'm not joking. 21 U.S. states have passed similar laws which ban state funds going to people or businesses who choose to boycott Israel, a country which a recent UN report has labeled an apartheid regime. And now survivors in Dixon, Texas, filing for emergency funds have to sign a contract stating the applicant does not boycott Israel and will not boycott Israel during the term of this agreement. The state government is plainly telling its citizens that either they get to keep their right to boycott or they can get help rebuilding their homes. What kind of choice is that?
This is the power of the Israeli lobby. And there's one way that we can beat them. Just keep educating people, keep sharing, keep posting. They didn't bet on this grassroots action. The narrative is shifting. People are starting to wake up. They're starting to realize the truth of this issue, that Israel is based on a colonialist corporation, that they're destroying Palestinian homes, lives, and they've been doing this for the past 75 years. People didn't even know this, and now they do, and they didn't bet on that.
Palestine updates for the day. A lot happened, so buckle up. Israeli forces are claiming that since October 7th, they have dropped 10,000 airstrikes. This is equivalent to one airstrike per 220 people in a very saturated area. In the past 3 days, receiving aid through the Rafah border has been significantly hindered. This is because of the telecommunications blackout in December 4th and the bombing that has occurred in and around the area of the Rafah border. An increasing number of staff are unable to even get to the area because of the bombardment damage. Many already displaced people tried to go to the Rafah border, but the Rafah border was too oversaturated. Streets are now overcrowded with displaced people. People are trying to find food and water, and this is while they have no access to either. The health situation is also collapsing as a little over 60% of the hospitals are not even operating. The family of an Al Jazeera correspondent was also completely wiped out. 21 members of his family, including his parents, his siblings, wives and spouses, their children, were all completely wiped out in an airstrike that left their home into a crater. The situation has gotten so bad that the UN has done an extremely rare move and they have invoked Article 99, one of the most powerful tools at his disposal to try to help the humanitarian disaster that's happening in Gaza, so we'll see if it works. Make sure to share, use your voice, and I will come back with more updates.
So apparently 49.7% of the world is made out of women. However, there seems to be an absence of women that are able to relate to what's going on in Gaza. Many self-proclaimed feminists and people who like to slap that label have been silent. So, if you can't relate to the Palestinian cause, if you can't relate to what it means to live under colonialism, what imperialism is, that's totally fine. But if you are a woman and you can't relate to other women, then there must be a problem with the way that you function as a human being. So in Gaza right now, there is an estimated 50,000 women that are pregnant. So many women have had miscarriages because of fear. These pregnant women have had to run from house to house fleeing for their lives. Many of these women that are pregnant have been killed with their babies in their womb. Not only that, but there are tons and tons of girls and women in Gaza right now that have their freaking periods and they don't have sanitary pads, they don't have water to clean themselves, they don't have access to any hygiene products. There are women that are having to take pills so that they can stop their periods. So Palestinian women's sexual and reproductive health has been depleted because of the genocide. If you are a woman and you're on your period every single month and you're still not thinking about the women in Gaza and you're still not talking about us, then you aren't really a feminist. So stop plastering that label everywhere. Because feminism is not about having a photo shoot with panties that have blood staining them and posting it on a website and then receiving backlash about those images and telling people, no, this is feminism, periods, we need to normalize it, stop the stigma with periods, because that's not feminism. That is performative feminism. That is feminism for marketing.
Hi, my name is Abid. I'm an attorney, Palestinian, alhamdulillah, and living in America. And we need to talk about, now you guys remember how for about, 61 days, we have been hearing everything about hostages. Unless there's a release of hostages, there will be no ceasefire. Unless there's a release of hostages, this will not end. Unless there's a release of hostages, yada, 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 right? So, why would Israel, which is, you know, this illegitimate place that is so concerned with hostages, flood the tunnels with seawater where they are saying that the hostages are being kept? I don't even want to talk about this. The generations of fresh water that will be affected and impacted in Gaza because of the flooding of tunnels with seawater. Because, you know, something that no one that was actually indigenous to the land, that actually cared about the land, would do. But I do want to discuss the fact that Netan met with the freed hostages and some of the family members of people who are still in Gaza, and they were annoyed with him. They were furious at him. In fact, see, fury at Netan. Do you know why? Because he doesn't really care about the hostages, and he's really showing that because he's first of all, downplaying the fact that ITF shelled their own people on October 7th. And then second, he's bombarding Gaza, intentionally bombarding Gaza, despite knowing that it's going to impact, hurt, unalive his own people. And third, he's planning to flood the tunnels where he says they are located. So I think now we understand it's very clear that Netan doesn't care about the hostages. Netan doesn't care whether they're unalived or whether they're returned safely. He just doesn't care. So can we stop with the whole, if only we give up the hostages?
I think I find it like uniquely fucking stupid when people are like, you guys only care about this topic because it's a trend. You only care about dinner day because it's a trend. Like, I just feel like if we took like 1 single second to think about why that doesn't make any fucking sense, you would not be saying this stupid shit on the internet. And I mean that to say, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has obviously been going on for the past 75 years. It has been a long time since Israel first settled in Palestine and since created its illegal state, and, you know, displaced the Palestinian people after Palestinian people said, after they rejected the initial, like, you know, treaty that would split the land, or whatever the fuck that people like to reference. But people pay a lot of attention when other people are dying very quickly. That is the issue right now. Like, Palestinians were being killed regularly. Palestinians were being held hostage in the numbers of like the hundreds. Could be even in the fucking thousands. I don't know. Nobody really knows. But like, if 12,000 people-ish, probably more than that, have died in 60 days, that's a lot of fucking people. A single strike killing like 500 people, that is not normal. Of course that's going to be like on the cultural like mind right now. Especially when, particularly how the United States likes to like be up in arms, pretend to be really upset about children, even though we don't give a fuck about kids in this country. Like, if more than half the population is under 18 in that country, that means that the majority of casualties are going to be kids. That's how that works out. Obviously, when things are really bad, people talk about it. I don't understand, like, it's not a trend. It is just a major atrocity. But also, like, that isn't even counting those of us that have been in this, that have been known this, that have been posting about this, been talking about this, been reading about this, been knowing about this. Like, there's a reason why everyone was like, it didn't start October 7th. Because everybody already fucking knew that it didn't start October 7th. If you want to talk about how when movements become mainstream, they become defanged and all of a sudden, like, lose any ability to make, like, real impact, maybe you can talk about that. If you want to talk about how a lot of the time when movements become mainstream, like, they are walked back from their most radical beginnings and become something a lot more palatable, talk about that. But please stop this disingenuous, nonsensical ass, you're just doing this because it's trendy right now, like, nonsense. Like, when thousands of kids die and like literal like hundreds of bloodlines are being erased in like moments, in days and weeks, like, people are gonna give a fuck about it because that's like that's the nature of being a human being that gives a fuck about human life even a little bit. Oh my god. Are you okay? What's going on? Oh my god. Am I okay?
Okay. Whoa. Why are you mad at me? Because of you and your shitty fucking planning. People in my own fucking country, they know everything. What do you mean everything? Dude, calm down. As long as they don't know that we're giving, like, money to politicians and all that stuff and about AIPAC, they don't know. They know about that. They know about that. They know about the fact that Cop City is going to be us working together and we put it in a black neighborhood to use them as target practice, but now they're mad about that too. They know about Cop City too. Know about the fact that we are giving you $3 billion, that we're paying for your healthcare and your housing. They know. They're mad. They're mad at us. They're mad at us because we aren't giving them free healthcare. Oh shit, this sounds bad. This sounds bad for you. For me? This sounds bad for me? It sounds bad for you too, because guess what? We're in the same fucking boat. They want you fucking gone, and they want me fucking gone, and they know about all the two-party crap system that doesn't even matter because we all just want money. I don't even know what to do anymore. They're all boycotting. They're all talking about it. Like it's just. Oh my God, what do we do? Oh my God. If it weren't for you, they would have still been blindly buying shit. We could have just give them sales and they would have just bought it and been happy. They wouldn't have been questioning everything, and now they're questioning everything because of your dumb fucking ass. Stop this now. I can't stop it. Why would I stop it? You're just being anti-Semitic right now. I can't. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
I need to hear this, so somebody else probably does too. If you're feeling guilty for not being able to do enough in your activism, I need you to remember that there are people who are not homeless. There are people who are not disabled. There are people who are not severely traumatized. There are people with money. There are people with significantly better circumstances, more time and more energy, and yet they choose to do nothing. So anything that you are doing, from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. So it's okay when your disabilities disable you. Take the time you need to rest and then get back at it.
Don't forget that it's not just about free Palestine, but the Palestine that's freeing us along the way.